Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you again for joining me today for another live Q&A. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel here on YouTube is dedicated to those of you getting started in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you some tips and tricks and techniques that I use every day in my own voiceover business. And I answer your questions in these weekly Q&As, albeit this one is a day late. Typically, I go live on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. EST, but I had some other arrangement yesterday that I needed to take care of. So here I am today on Wednesday, November 30th. If you are not new here, then you know that every week we have a poll. And this one is an interesting one. Last few have been kind of interesting. Today's poll is: if you are a freelancer that uses Fiverr, the platform Fiverr, uh, how do you feel about commercial rights being standardized? And I'm not sure exactly. Let me just back up and say that some voice actors, sellers on Fiverr have received a email question, sort of a survey. I was not included in this one, but that's okay. I don't know how I would answer anyway, because I'm not quite sure if this means that commercial rights are automatically assumed. And if you got this email, please clarify this for me. But if commercial rights are assumed for each and every order, and then therefore tacked on to each and every order, or if this means they should be a standardized rate across the board for voiceover services. How do you feel about that? I mean, do you think that listen, I'm assuming that means a standardized rate across the board. I could be wrong. I'm going to have to find out exactly what this means, but in my thinking, the standardized commercial rights could be a standard price, right? So everybody charges the same price for commercial rights, which is basically internet usage of your voice at all. Anytime that a product, service, or business is promoted online at all, that commercial rights should be applied. So that is today's poll. How do you feel about that? So let's hop on over to the poll and see what we got in terms of responses so far. So 15 votes, and it looks like 80% of you said yes, and 20% of you said no. I think, if I'm thinking about this the right way, if they are referring to standardizing a certain rate, a dollar amount for commercial rights, I would be okay with that. If it was I'm guessing they would have to take the opinions or what everyone that they surveyed, maybe ask them, what are they charging for commercial rights, and then take like an average of that and then use that as the basis for commercial rights going forward for everybody. I don't know. I think I would be okay with it if it was close to what I charge for commercial rights. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But let's hop on over to the comments and see who's here. Joe Leonard is first. Hello, Joe. Hi, Angela. Hey, Joe. Sally is here. Good morning, Sally. Howdy from Pensacola. I had lots of storms this morning. It is 59 degrees here in Phoenix and sunny, although we're supposed to get some rain this weekend, so maybe those storms are heading this way. Anthony Pica alerted us to this new Fiverr change. Yeah, concerned it will be ridiculously, that's also where I saw it. Concerned it will be ridiculously low fee that they will absorb and we will get nothing. Yeah, because if I have to, let's think about this for a second. If it is a standardized rate across the board for everybody, they would have to get a baseline from everybody that they're asking, right? In terms of what they're charging for commercial rights. And then I would imagine that that rate wouldn't be ridiculously low because Fiverr will get their percentage of that, right? That's how I'm thinking about it. I could be wrong, but I don't think that is something that they will completely absorb. I think that would still go to um, our bottom line, a portion of it anyway, and would help our overall average sales price go up and increase, which is also a good thing, right? I'm definitely gonna have to look more into this, but yeah, just kind of scrolling and just let me just also pause and say that I have been kind of a mess the last couple weeks. I've had some personal stuff going on, so I apologize if I'm a little behind in answering questions, in other places or stuff like that, but some stuff going on. So I apologize for that, but I did see scrolling through YouTube yesterday, I did see that Anthony was mentioning, and I said, that's another very good question. So I wanted to see what you guys thought. Sean Lester 007 says, "Are you okay? Are you alive?" Yes, yes, and yes. Thank God you are alive. I went looking for you, but seriously, I'm glad you're here. I need my weekly support group. Well, I do too. That is why I didn't want to completely skip this week because I love talking to you guys. I just had something else going on yesterday at the same time that I couldn't be here. So, but I'm here now. I'm alive. I'm good. And I'm glad you're here, Sean. Grant. Good morning, Grant. Still plugging away at that 16-hour book. I bet. That's a big book. At least I'm getting quicker at both narrating and editing. Yes, first book, no matter how long it is, I guess especially if it's longer, there's a lot you learn about yourself doing your first book. And not only that, but finding faster ways to get through editing. You start to find, common steps that maybe like macro steps that you can, well, no, micro steps that you can make into a macro. Does that make sense? You start to find shortcuts on how to streamline your process, basically. Yeah, there's a lot you learn about yourself in getting your first book done. PB, hello, good morning. Hi, Angela. Regarding ACX, where can I learn the type of standard edits expected as I submitted an audition, perhaps? Thanks for your recent video walkthrough demo for ACX. Oh, you're welcome. I have a few, actually. I have a few videos on ACX specifically. Standard types of edits expected. I'm assuming in a submitted audition. Um, I think along with those videos that I have done for ACX, I think I go through the whole process on a couple of them. And granted, I did those videos a couple of years ago now, but I go through the whole process of finding something to audition for, then recording it, and then editing it, and then formatting it, and then submitting it. I go through the whole process. Um, I may even have another video on just editing, and I use Adobe Audition. So if you use Adobe Audition, it might be helpful for you to watch that video. And I think I have all of those in the audiobook playlist, but I do have more than one playlist here. If you don't have Adobe Audition, then you might want to find another channel. Mike Russell is a great channel to watch if you use, I believe he goes through Reaper, and I want to say Studio One. I could be wrong, but he also has some great videos on Adobe Audition as well, and some tips and tricks with effects, noise reduction, things like that. But there are other voice actors here and audio engineers here on YouTube that can help you with your particular DAW of choice. It was a baby tangent. But it is, there are, as with everything else in audiobook narration and voiceover, there are a lot of variables, right? Everybody's studio is different, everybody's microphone setup, recording equipment, DAW. There's a lot of different variables. So take it all in. Find someone that has great tutorials on the DAW that you have and just soak it all in and then see what applies to your situation and your setup. Hat Powser, good morning. Sorry I left you hanging yesterday, but I'm here now. Ross Nelson, good afternoon from North Carolina. Good afternoon, Ross. Thank you for joining. Ruthie says, hi from sunny Chattanooga, Tennessee. That is just so fun to say. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Hi, Ruthie. How you doing? How you doing? John Popovich is here. Hello, John. Good morning, Angela. I have had 0 hits on Fiverr since they changed the buyer requests. I think as far as the rights, standardize it. It will just make it easier for both parties. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think in my heart of hearts, I think that with this survey, if it is a standardized rate across the board, that they would have to get the input from the people that they surveyed, which are, in my opinion, typically top rated sellers, right? So they have usually a higher price point for things. So I would think that they would take their input on what commercial rights pricing should be and take that, maybe take the average of it or something, and then use that. But yeah, it would make it easier. It'd make it more not universal. What's the word I'm looking for? Standard? What a cop out. Okay. All right. Need more coffee is what I need. But I think you're right in that respect that it would make it easier. It would be less calculation. It would be easier for the client to go, okay, well, if everybody's charging the same for rights, then that's not going to affect my bottom line as much as the same across every seller. In that respect, you'd only have the changes in what they charge, what their base gig or per word count would be, right? So yeah, it would make it a little bit easier on the buyers for sure. Now, if we're talking about them and adding commercial rights to the gig as a base, like a base gig, like regardless of the use of the voiceover, if they're tacking on commercial rights to each and every voiceover, I don't know if that would be exactly fair because here, stick with me, hear me out. For my meditation clients, a lot of them are for personal use, right? I record something for them that's very specific and custom for that client to listen to while they sleep or morning affirmations or helping them to overcome something that they're trying to overcome or to help them heal in some way shape or form. And if that is going to be for personal use only, then that's not going to need commercial rights. And for them to have to pay commercial rights on top of that, then that might be a problem for them. And I'm sure there's some other instances out there where commercial rights probably won't apply. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I mean, from a seller standpoint, that would definitely raise our bottom line, of course, but it's not always about us, right? It's about the people we serve, it's our clients and what's fair for everybody. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly that means and what is going to happen there, if it does. Joe Leonard says, I'm struggling with my identity and need recommendations. I'm passionate about VO for radio promo narration, but also audio post production, including sound design, editing, music composition. Oh, and then you continue down here. Hold on. Just wondering how I should brand myself, VO and audio engineer, or well, Joe, I don't do all of the things that you do. Well, sound design, music, I don't do music composition, but I do consider myself we have some commonality there, let's just say that. I consider myself a one-person studio. I also do, audio editing in podcasts. I also do a little bit of sound design. When people just say, "Here, add music to it," for, matching the tone and feel of the narration or the video. There's been instances where I've had to do that so I just consider myself a studio. Right? I'm a voice actor and I have a studio. And I also have the capability of audio editing and stuff like that. Some of the same things that you do. So that's how I name myself. So VoiceOverAngela Productions is my business name because I produce all kinds of stuff, right? And that even can include video creation for the meditation clients, right? I'm creating video and like a whole soundscape for those too, along with the narration. So there's a lot more that goes into what I do than just voiceover and narration. So in that respect, I just consider myself a studio and like a home studio, home audio studio. So that's kind of how I brand myself. I hope that helps give you a little bit of direction, but it doesn't, it's whatever you feel that you are. Melina Joy says, good morning. Good morning. Hat says, sorry to hear you're in a rough patch. Yeah, everybody has them from time to time, right? Thank you for your dedication to us all. And thank you all for your dedication in being here. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy this group that meets up every week. And I'm sorry again that I was not here yesterday, but I'm here now. Oh, then Joe, you continue on. I must have missed that one. I'm sorry. Just wondering how I should brand myself. Oh, no, I did read that one. VO and audio engineer. Yeah, just a studio. That's what I call myself. Chadwick Haley says, hi, Angela. Just discovered you this morning searching for some help with editing for ACX. Glad I was able to catch you live here. Well, welcome, Chadwick. I'm glad that you found me. I have a lot of, in addition to these lives, I have a lot of information on my channel here on audiobook narration, ACX specifically, and voiceover. And just, I also have some other just really silly playlists here. I have a lot of stuff here on my channel. But thank you for joining. I appreciate you being here. We meet every week on Tuesday, 12 p.m. EST, usually talking about a specific topic, but a lot of times we get derailed and just have a lot of fun. Sometimes I have people on here with me getting their opinions on things, but glad you're here. Glad to have you, Chadwick. Oh, I just saw something pop up here. Sean, thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Sean. I appreciate you. Work-life balance, is that a thing? It's sometimes it's harder than others. But yes, work-life balance is something that I really desperately needed and is not super simple to find, especially when you're a business owner and you are a solopreneur, right? There's a lot of hats to wear. And if you're a parent, you throw that in too, keeping up the house, picking up the kiddo from school. I mean, there's a lot to do in a day. But I find again, and I talk about this a lot, and I'm sorry if your ears are bleeding about it, but I do have an agenda book that I use that has a daily and a weekly and not a weekly, daily and a monthly on it, to keep track of things every day to do. And that has really, really helped me keep tabs on things that are important. Otherwise, they would just go in one ear, out the other. But to keep on track of, due dates and what needs to be done in a day. But that is about as close to a work-life balance as I have. But thank you so much for the super chat, Sean. You're the best. I appreciate you. If you were here, I'd give you a big hug. Made my day. PB says, thanks. I was referring to the ACX formatting. Yep, ACX formatting. I think I also have some videos here on my channel about ACX formatting as well. The whole shebang. The whole shebang. Sally says, have some issues with branding as Joe Leonard. Thank you for asking. Yeah, because everything that you do for your business really revolves around your branding, and branding is important. So take a lot of time with that and figure out how you want to be branded, right? Do you want to include just voiceover and audiobook narration, or just audiobook narration? Or do you do a lot of audio editing and, like I do, which to me, voiceover and music and video, they all sort of go hand in hand. So for me, I wanted to brand myself as like I said, it's VoiceOverAngela Productions. So I produce a lot of stuff, right? It's kind of a wide umbrella. So I just consider myself a one-person studio, right? I can do record voiceover, audiobook narration or audiobook production, video production, audio editing. So there's a lot that we can do. I mean, we have all the equipment. Why not? Right? It's a good question. Elizabeth is here. Hello, Elizabeth. Hi, Angela. Lovely to see you. I noticed that Fiverr has the option to limit how many projects you will accept at the same time for each gig. Do you recommend that, or would it mess up the algorithm? No, it doesn't mess up the algorithm, and I think if you're in a place where you're starting to see a lot of business, it's a good idea to limit that. But just keep in mind that limits the amount of, new clients that can order from you. Repeat clients will still see your active gig there and can order from you again, which is okay. But if you're in a place where you have a lot of repeat clients for one particular gig, you might wanna and you're having trouble keeping up perhaps, then it might be a good idea to limit how many gigs can be in your queue at one time. Because even when you do that, let's just say you set it to 3, right? To 3 gigs, 3 active gigs. You could still have 6, 7, 8, the other ones that were placed, the other 5 that were placed could be from repeat clients. So it only helps to slow the flow, but it's not going to stop it completely, right? Does that make sense? All right. Let's go down to Musical Neptunian. Hello. Thank you for being here. Hop Pole Studios is also great for Reaper tutorials. There you go, guys. Reaper, if you have Reaper, go check that out. Hop Hop Pole Studios. I'm assuming that's here on YouTube. Hat Powser says Josh Meyer. Oh, that's right, Josh Meyer. Josh Meyer for Audacity. There you go. Thank you guys for sharing. I appreciate that. Linda. Hello, Linda. Thank you for joining. Hello from Western North Carolina. Hello, hello. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining the conversation. Joe says, I'm sure I'm just overthinking. No, you're not. I mean, those are all valid questions to ask. All valid. You're not overthinking at all, but it's something important that you need to really think about. So that's not overthinking at all. Janeri is here. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. The Vulcaneer. Hey, Angela. I've done a couple audiobooks already and have tried ACX, but notice auditions, they rarely get a response, yay or nay. Is that the norm? Yes. There have been some auditions that I have done and never heard anything, and that was over a year ago. So, some people are quick to respond, some people are on it, and some maybe change their mind, or maybe something happened, you know? I would like to think that a lot of people I'm pretty quick to respond to things most of the time, maybe not lately, but I don't like to keep people waiting on me, but not everybody is that way. I would like to think that rights holders, especially if they're actively soliciting narrators to audition for a book that they have listed for audiobook production, that they would let them all know, hey, this is great. Maybe you're in the top 3 and I'll let you know as soon as I know, but not everybody does. So that is completely the norm. But once a narrator is selected, you should at least get a automated response from ACX saying, "Hey, you were not chosen. So sorry, but keep trying," that kind of a thing. So you should hear something at some point, but you may or may not. David. Hi, David. Generic? What's generic? What did I miss? Thank you, David, for being here. I appreciate you. Janeri Rubio says, Hi, Angela. Someone messaged me in ACX offering to help me with my audio for a very friendly price. Did you get that before? I didn't reply because I don't have a budget for that. Yeah, I think over the course of the last 4 years or so, I've received a handful of those. And those are just people reaching out to you to solicit their services. So yes, I have seen those too. Yeah, for sure. And you don't have to reply to those if you don't want to. Joe says, "Got it. That's helpful. Thanks." Good. Good, good, good. Oh, you know what? Let's hop on over to the poll really quick. And then again, today's poll, you guys, was do you think, for those of you on Fiverr, do you think that commercial rights should be standardized on Fiverr? And when I say that, I'm thinking pricing, right? Should maybe the pricing be standardized across the board from seller to seller to seller? So let's think what you guys, or let's think. Let's see what you guys think. Brain and mouth are not connecting today. 26 votes. 77% of you said yes, and 23% of you said no. Interesting. I thought it would have been a pretty even split, but most of you said Yes. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It does make it a little bit easier on the sellers, and that is still, I mean, let's just say for a second that most of those top rated sellers, I'm guessing, are those are the people that they surveyed, Fiverr surveyed for this. Most of those top rated sellers, their commercial rights are up there, right? Their fees for that are $30, $40, $50. So if they're going to use that as a price point, then that is going to do nothing but raise everybody else's selling price, right? Average selling price. If commercial rights were standardized at a rate around those rates, right? I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing, right? All right, let's hop back over to the comments. Um, and you guessed it, I lost my place. Oh, here we go. David says, "Thanks, Angela. You're really helpful for us newbies. Good vibes." I appreciate that, David. That's what I'm trying to do. Just share with you anything that I know, and hopefully that is helpful. Good. Thank you for being here again, David. Chadwick says, "Thanks for the welcome. I'm just starting down this VO road. What would you recommend as a good starting point?" That really depends on what you want to do. I know. As I mentioned before, there are so many variables in this industry. You know, everybody's recording space, shape, size, setup is different. Everybody's recording equipment is different. The DAWs are different. Everybody's voice is different. You know, there's so many variables to consider, but it depends on what you want to do. If you want to narrate audiobooks, if you want to do just voiceover stuff, maybe something specific within voiceover, like e-learning only, or maybe animation, you know, character voices. If you want to do commercials only, figure out what it is that you enjoy, and if you're open to it, try everything. I have quite a few videos here on my channel where I talk about how I started, but basically how it started was I discovered audiobook narration. I started with LibriVox.org, which is where you can volunteer your time to narrate audiobooks in the public domain. And that is where I did most of my hard learning on how to use my DAW, how to format files, and how to narrate, right? Discovering that it is really a workout, especially when you're doing a long, you know, long stretches of narration. And after I felt comfortable with that through, you know, doing the or narrating the books on LibriVox, I signed up on ACX. And then shortly after that, I signed up on Fiverr and Upwork, and then branched out to voices.com, Voice 123, Bidalgo, you know, a slew of other, there are literally over 100 other voiceover casting sites that you can sign up on. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot of places to find work. So take a look at some of these sites and take a look at their pricing structures. Some of these sites will don't charge you anything to start, but they will take a percentage of what you make. Some of them require a monthly, a quarterly, or a yearly membership. Some of them, on top of that membership, they will also take a percentage of your income. A lot of the pricing structures are different. So make sure that each and every one of these sites that you take a look at, get a good grip on how they're structured so you know what to expect when it comes time to be paid. But we have a lot of information here on my channel for you. So take it all in and see what you want to do and how you want to get started with that. There's a lot of different ways in. Jolene says, "Hello from Lake Arrowhead, California." Lake Arrowhead's beautiful. Question for your poll. What do you mean by standardized? Well, I think from, and I didn't watch Anthony Pica's video on this very topic yesterday all the way through. So I want to say it's one of two things. When they're talking about standardizing, do they mean that it's going to be one rate for everybody across the board from seller to seller to seller, the same amount for commercial rights? Or does that mean that they're going to include it on every, as part of the base VO gig? Is it going to be included on every voiceover regardless of what its use is? So depending on what it is, I guess either way, how do you feel about that? And if you don't If you can't answer just yes or no, then tell me how you feel about that here in the comments. I'd really like to know how you guys feel about that. I'm thinking I'm thinking that they mean that they're going to standardize the rate across the board because not every I mean, a good 90% of what we do is going to be online in some shape or form, but there are a small fraction of clients, namely like meditation clients who hire me for recordings for personal use that don't require commercial rights. They're personal, right? They're only going to be played on their phone or in their on their MP3 device while they sleep or whatever it is. It's not going to be online at all. So it doesn't always apply, but yeah, a good 90 something percent of what we do will be. So I'm not thinking it's going to be tacked on to every voiceover gig. I'm thinking it's going to be a standardized price for everybody. So it's same, right? So there's not too many variables in terms of how much it costs for the seller. I'm sorry, for the buyer. Another tangent. Jfree906 says, "Hi, Angela." Hello, Jfree. I love doing documentaries and books without dialogue. I struggle with different voices. Do you think doing voices differently is important? I would say yes. At some point, you're probably going to have a client who wants the voices to be different, to differentiate who is speaking when. Not all the time. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about some really great audiobook narrators like Scott Brick, who we talk about a lot here on my channel, who does very, very, very subtle changes between character voices, right? So nothing too outrageously different, but you still know who is talking. You can still follow along with the story. But I think if you're getting into maybe children's books or animation, stuff like that, video games, you're really going to have to come up with some different sounding voices, especially if you're hired to do multiple roles, right? So it is advantageous if you can discover how many voices that you can sustain, right? Consortio says, "Salutations, fair lady Angela." Thank you. Make me blush. Has ACX is not available for VO actors in Mexico. Are you aware of another source that would allow us outsiders to get in on book narration? Yes, every other freelance marketplace or even some of the casting sites like voices.com have audiobook production on them. So Fiverr, Upwork, Freelancer, Guru.com. There's a handful of other freelancer marketplaces that you can find audiobook production on. I would say a good chunk of the books that I narrate come from Fiverr. Another great prospect where I find audiobook narration is Upwork. Um, and I have a lot of people reaching out to me directly now that find me online to produce their audiobooks through social media, and YouTube, namely, is a big one. So there's a lot of other ways, but you have to get out there. You have to get out there and let people know what you do, who you are, what you sound like, right? Your experience, how much you love doing it, so they can find you, hear you, and contact you, right? But there's a lot of other places apart from ACX. I don't even audition on ACX anymore. And when you're working on another platform or directly with a client, they can upload those files to ACX. You don't have to have anything to do with ACX. You just produce the audiobook to ACX's standards, mind you. You have to make sure that you can do that. And then once you send those files to the client then in turn uploads the files to ACX, and then they have an audiobook, right? So there's a lot of other avenues apart from working directly with ACX. Sean says, "I'm an Upwork jockey." Upwork is another great place to find work. "I have a Lamo profile on Fiverr, but it seems overwhelming." It is. It's a little bit more intensive than Upwork is. What would you recommend as a resource for understanding how to use Fiverr? I have a handful of videos here on Fiverr myself. Anthony Pica, A VO's Journey, has got a lot of great videos on Fiverr. Trying to think who else has got. I know there's somebody else, but I can tell you that Anthony is like the king of Fiverr. I learned a lot from Anthony Pica. He was my personal coach for a while. Not personal, but He was my coach for about a year, but he's got a lot of great information on Fiverr. And Fiverr's going through a lot of changes. They're adding a lot of beta testing some new things. So it's going to be hard to keep up with some of those changes. But Anthony's got a lot of great videos on Fiverr. Jeff Smith says, greetings from North Carolina. Love your videos. So helpful. Oh, good. I'm glad that you find them helpful. Thank you, Jeff, for that validation. Ruthie says, I use Trello for an agenda tool and love it. Yeah, I've heard a lot of great things about Trello. I have to say I'm most comfortable with pen and paper. I want it in front of me. I can scribble on it at any given time. I can glance at it at any given time, right? So I'm kind of old school that way, I suppose, but I like pen and paper. But Trello, I've heard a lot of great things about. But Michael, bleh. Michael V says, I was worried something happened to you yesterday. I hope you're well. Nope, I'm okay. I just had an appointment that I had to be at the same time. So I'm here today. Sorry about that, guys. Sally says, 2 questions. Do you record documentaries? Second, once Fiverr standardizes commercial rights, what happens with broadcast rights? It's a great question. Let's address the first one first. Yes, I do record documentaries. A lot of it is how-tos, training videos. I've done a few things for across the globe. It was I want to say like a dairy farm or stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff. There's a wide range of things that I record. Um, for the commercial rights question, if they do standardize that rate, I would think that broadcast rights would still be whatever you choose them to be, I would imagine. If we're only talking about commercial rights, then that would be something that obviously we couldn't change, but full broadcast, we would probably, unless that is also something that they're thinking about standardizing, I don't know. But that would be a really great question. I guess we'll see, right? We'll see how it goes. Elizabeth says, thank you, Angela. It makes a lot of sense. I'm not at the overwhelmed place yet at all. Just wanted to know your thoughts. Yeah, I think if you have a gig that is your bestseller and that gets a lot of traction, and once you start to feel a little bit overwhelmed, and then you can limit those if you want to, but then your past clients still have access. So you can do that or raise your prices, right? That'll also slow the flow if you start to get a little overwhelmed once you get to that point. T-Mac says, do you think men have an advantage over females? In terms of voiceover and audiobook narration? No, I think it's fair game. Fair game. I know a pretty even split. I think there's actually a little bit more males that I know in the voiceover industry. But it's almost pretty even. I think slightly tilted in the males' direction. I don't know if there's a particular advantage. I think there are advantages to either, but not one. It's evenly weighted, I suppose. I think I see the same amount of work for both for sure. Because again, voice actors represent the world. So we give voice to every person in the world, which there are a lot of different kinds of people, right? We represent the world. So there is a need for everybody, every voice. Agenda. Yeah, I knew you meant agenda. Jolene says, I think Fiverr should change their label of rights to online use and broadcast usage. I do too. So many people not thinking they need commercial rights because they automatically think it's only for ads. Yeah. I think in my FAQs, I have an FAQ that says, do you need commercial slash internet rights? And I break it down so it's a little bit easier to understand. And then full broadcast rights is, internet rights that are or internet usage that's going to be used for advertising purposes. I try to make it as easy to understand as possible. But you're right. A lot of people see the word commercial and think it's for ads. And then they're like, well, what does full broadcast mean then if I'm already paying for commercial? So it's a little bit confusing with the word choices. So, but you can do what you can do on your end in your own gig to try to demystify the word, right? Make it make sense. Scott says, "Did you pay for membership in other sites?" I do have I have the monthly membership for Upwork, so I get all of my connects rolled over and then added every month. And I have a membership for Bidalgo. I also have a membership for voices.com. I also have one for Voice 123. And I think that is all of my memberships for those. Very selective. Tracy says, what do you use for background music for commercials, free or paid music, and what site? I don't do a whole lot of commercials, and I don't get asked for music on commercials. But what I do get asked for music to be mixed into a lot of the time is meditation and podcasts. I do podcast editing as well. And the music that I purchase is always royalty free professional music because I do not want any of my clients to get any kind of copyright strike, right? Using free music means that it's used by a lot of people, and sometimes those people will try to copyright it when it's not theirs to copyright, which in turn causes copyright issues for anything that you produce using the same material or a music track, right? So I use storyblocks.com. I have a paid membership there, and with that membership comes a license to use any of the digital assets that are there. And Storyblocks has music, sound effects, still images, video footage, just about anything that you could, After Effects, anything that you could need to make video or audio. So um, that's what I use. Um, Hat says, I was tempted to audition for a 26 hour book on ACX as a first project. I would have to say no. I mean, do what you want to do, but oh my gosh, I would say that would be a marathon. That would probably take you a good year as a first book. I was terrified I'd get it. Currently number 1 in organized crime, true accounts. How long you reckon it would take to come out? That is 260,000 words. That is a lot. A lot. I think for me right now, that a book that size would take me months. Would take me probably 6 months, maybe more. That's a big book. That's a big book. So just be prepared for that. I I I don't know. I would have to say no as a first book that might just terrify you, and you probably won't narrate audiobooks anymore after that. That would be enough for your whole lifetime, I think, for your first book. That would be quite the undertaking. Let me just say that. That's a lot. All right, let's take a look at the poll, guys. Okay, again, today's poll was, do you think commercial rights should be standardized on Fiverr? And when I say standardized, I think what they're talking about is the same price across the board from seller to seller to seller. Do you think they should do that? So 34 votes, 76% of you said yes, and 24% of you said no. Yeah, again, I don't think I would have a problem with them doing that as long as it was pretty close to what mine currently are, what my rates currently are. And again, if they're surveying top rated sellers, which I imagine they would, but don't quote me, I don't know if they are for certain. But usually when they're beta testing things like that, they're trying to get best selling sellers, trying to get their opinions on things, right? Because they handle a lot of clients. So in that respect, it would make sense. But I don't know. They could be including, other people too. I don't know. What do I know? But I would think that whoever they are surveying would have pretty close to the same, range of rates for commercial rights. So I'm hoping if they take that input and then average that out, then it would be pretty close to what I'm already charging, and I would be okay with that. But and then again, keep in mind that Fiverr also gets a percentage of that, so they wouldn't want it to be too low, right? I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just wanted to see what you guys would think about that. All right. back over to the comments. Where did I leave off? Oh, here I am. Ruthie says, I'm new and don't have any VOs yet. What is the process of billing? If you're working through one of these sites, VO casting sites or freelance marketplaces, most of them will usually collect funds from the client and hold it in escrow until the client is satisfied or the order closes. And they, in turn, then send the money to you via direct deposit or Payoneer, PayPal, whatever third party payment collection service that you use. I would also recommend having something in place like QuickBooks. uh, we talked about payment collection services a few weeks ago. I think at the beginning of this month we did. And there was a lot of great ideas for collection companies like PayPal, Payoneer, Wave.com, or was it Wave or Waves? So it's a place where you can send invoices and collect funds from people and collect credit card payments and things like that. There's also Square, Stripe. There's a handful of them, but have something like that also in place where you can send invoices to clients. That would be very helpful. But the trick is finding one that is pretty universal across, all platforms, unless you're okay with having several different places to collect funds from. I guess it's not a bad idea to have a backup, right? But I typically, depending on what it is, if it's an audiobook, I collect 50% up front and then the remaining 50% when the book is done. Uh, Depending on what it is, really is when I send the invoice. If it's something big, I'll usually split it 50-50, collect the first part up front and then the second part when it's done. Or I'll send the bill with the project if it's something smaller. The Vulcaneer says, "Wow, 26 hours. I know, right? That's a big one. 10 hours was a challenge for me. I think my first book was 8 hours, and that took a long time because there's a lot to figure out. I think it took me about a month and a half to 2 months, maybe. Maybe, is that right? Or did I do it in a month? And then I was hoping I was wishing I had more time. But for your first book, that is quite the undertaking. That's a big book, just generally speaking. But for your first book, that would be boy. Yeah. 26 hours, 2 volumes, 1,000 pages by one of the finest investigative journalists of our time and probably deserves a Pulitzer she won't get. Doing that book is scary in more ways than one. Absolutely. Interesting. Super interesting to say, but oh my God, I can't. That's a big book. Big book. Chadwick says, Wave is similar to QuickBooks, but is free and allows you to send invoices and manage payroll if you need that. Yeah, Wave was definitely one we talked about in that live session. I want to say that was November 1st that we talked about that. There were a lot of great suggestions brought up by you guys, and I appreciate that because as a community, we're only stronger, right? Everybody can put in an opinion or a suggestion or an experience and probably help somebody else that's here watching and chatting with us. So it's not just me, it's the power of all of us together that can really, really help someone else move forward. And again, I appreciate all of you that join every week and join in and add suggestions and recommendations. And I really appreciate that because you never know how many people you could help by just saying, hey, I use this and it's great, So I appreciate y'all. Um, Thank you for that, Chadwick. Ruthie says, to whom do I send the invoice and when? That would be to the client. um, Unless you're doing it through ACX. If you're doing royalty share on ACX, then ACX will collect all of the sales that you've made on the sale of each audiobook, and then every month they pay that out and usually send that or deposit that directly into your bank account. Unless you're doing a per finished hour or pay for production book, then you have to send the invoice to the client. You could do it all for the lump sum at the end when the book is done, or you could do what I do and collect 50% up front. And in doing that, I think really prevents scams from happening because, nobody wants to pay for a scam, right? They want to take the book for free. So collecting 50% up front on start is a good way to prevent that. And then I collect the remaining 50% when the book is done. Um, if someone is contacting you directly, then you would send the invoice to them, again, depending on how big the project is. If you want to send the invoice with the finished project to the client, you know, and that's a conversation you want to have with the client too at the beginning is let them know what you use for payment collection. Let's just say if you used PayPal, I use PayPal for payment or for invoicing, and it'll be this much. And is there someone that I should be using, or it's like, is there somebody that I should be addressing this invoice to? Is there, like um, an accounts payable, officer or somebody in charge of this that I should be sending it to? Otherwise, I'll be sending it, directly to you, and then you can ask for their company details. And a lot of times it's in their signature, right? Their business address, phone number, email address, all of the stuff that you need for your invoice. But you can ask the client that, if that needs to be addressed a specific way in the invoice. Don't be afraid to ask clients questions. It's okay to ask questions. I do it all the time. I don't always claim to know everything. It's okay if you don't know the answer. You're still a professional, right? It's okay. Oh, Chadwick, thank you so much for that. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time and content. You've got a new fan here. Oh, thank you, Chadwick. I appreciate you. Oh, try not to get all emotional. Okay. All right. We've been on for about an hour. Thank you, Chadwick. I really appreciate it. Sean, too. I appreciate you guys sending the super chats. He's really making my day. I think if nobody else has any other questions or comments for now, I think we'll wrap this up for today. And I will be here the usual same bat time, same bat channel. So next Tuesday, which is December. Oh my gosh, guys. December. So it'll be December 6th at 12 p.m. EST. I'll be here. You'll be here. We'll all be here. And we'll find something else interesting to discuss. If you have something that you think that we should discuss as a group, some burning question or topic that you think is just super interesting. And for those of you watching the replay too, if you have something that you would like to talk about and get other people their opinions and perspectives about, then put it in the chat, put it in the comments, and we'll see if we can talk about it in the upcoming weeks here on my live Q&A. So again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. I appreciate you. Everybody's saying, oh, Ralph, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Michael V, I'm holding you to that. Yes, we'll be here next Tuesday. Phoebe says, thank you for your channel, Angela. Thank you for being here, Phoebe. Ruthie says, if Fiverr holds the money in escrow, why do I invoice the client? You would only invoice the client on platforms that do not do the escrow thing. So if you're doing a pay for production book on Audible, then you would need to invoice the client. But if you're on Upwork, Fiverr, voices.com, Voice123, a lot of times, or maybe not those in particular, but again, that's another reason why you need to research these sites and see how payment is handled. But a lot of these will collect money in escrow and then release it to you once the order is done. So in the instances where there is no escrow, then you would need to invoice the client. I hope that makes sense. Hat says, thank you, Angela. Consortio, thank you. John, thank you, thank you. PB, thank you. Look forward to learning from your video playlist. Best wishes. Thank you again, Elizabeth. You are amazing. You're all amazing as far as I'm concerned. So thank you again, everybody. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for those who did a super chat. I really appreciate you. I will be here next Tuesday, 12 p.m. EST with bells on But until then, you guys have a fabulous week. See you then. Bye.